Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm so glad that today we can once again continue following the story of Lythieuca and Hung, the steadfast police officer, loyal and faithful in love. In the previous episode, the story left a deep impression on the audience. Lythieuca, a strong and resilient woman, had to endure the most painful loss a mother could face. She suffered a miscarriage and lost the child that she and her husband had longed for every single day. One might think that such sorrow would drive them apart, extinguishing their hope of a happy home. But unexpectedly, this very tragedy made Hung's love even stronger and deeper. He did not choose to turn away, nor abandon her like weaker men might. With determined eyes and a sincere heart, Hung stood up to protect his love. In front of family and friends, with tears in his eyes but a firm voice, he declared his vow. No matter how many storms we face, no matter how difficult the future may be, I still choose you. All I need is you, Lythieuca. There was no need for a lavish wedding, no grand gown or flowers everywhere. Instead, Hung personally arranged a small, simple yet warm and sacred ceremony. With only close family and a few friends as witnesses, he gave Lythieuca the rightful place she deserved, as his wife, cherished, protected, and respected for a lifetime. The moment Hung slipped the ring onto her hand, Lythieuca broke down in tears. But these were no longer tears of pain, they were tears of happiness, gratitude, and relief, the tears of a woman who, after all the storms, had finally found a safe haven. In Hung's strong embrace, she knew she was no longer alone. And as if life had prepared a gift for them, little Tony, innocent and carefree, ran joyfully around, waving his tiny hands to everyone, his radiant smile lighting up the room like sunshine. Tony's presence turned that simple ceremony into a sacred memory, one of the most important milestones in Lythieuca's life. That moment reminded us all, true love is never defeated by loss. On the contrary, it is within sorrow that love grows stronger, giving two hearts the wings to find each other amidst countless storms. And now, please join me in today's episode to discover the newest developments in the journey of Lythieuca and Hung. After the small yet heartwarming wedding, Lythieuca's old tiled roof house seemed to put on a brand new coat. The silence and emptiness of before were gone, replaced by the lively sounds of laughter, chatter, and the quick footsteps of a child running about. From morning till night, the courtyard glowed with joy after so many gloomy days. Tony remained as carefree as a little bird newly freed from its cage. His tiny feet pattered across the sun-warmed red tiles, his laughter ringing out as he ran around. Every so often, he would pause to pick up a fallen yellow leaf or pluck a wildflower by the fence, then rush back happily to show his mother. Sitting on the doorstep, Lythieuca's eyes followed his every move, her heart filled with sweetness. She smiled more often now, her gaze brighter, her face no longer weighed down by sorrow. The tears once shed in grief had become nothing more than a distant memory, giving way to peace and serenity within her soul. During his rare days off, Hung did not hesitate to get his hands dirty. He eagerly rolled up his sleeves to share the household work with his wife. In the mornings, he went with Lythieuca to the garden, where together they planted clusters of golden chrysanthemums along the path. Later, when the flowers bloomed, their bright yellow would serve as a simple, cheerful greeting to every visitor. He helped her rebuild the gourd trellis, fixed the old wooden gate warped by sun and rain. In the afternoons, as the sunlight softened, he climbed up onto the roof to replace the worn tiles one by one, sweat soaking through his back. Every strike of the hammer on the roof felt like the steady beat of a heart, marking his determination to build a lasting home. For Hung, this wasn't just about repairing a leaky roof, it was about building trust and happiness for their future. Relatives and neighbors came to visit as well. They brought no lavish gifts, only the humble tokens of the countryside, a fragrant bunch of ripe bananas, a plump hen, a bundle of wildflowers still damp with morning dew. Yet those simple gifts carried immense warmth and sincerity. Each visitor offered their blessings, joy for Hoài, who after so much loss had found support, and joy for Hung, who could finally protect and cherish the woman he loved. Their handshakes, kind smiles, and simple words of encouragement made the little house glow with warmth. By late afternoon, the last rays of sunlight spread a pale golden glow across the roof tiles, while the breeze carried the faint scent of chrysanthemums. Hoài leaned against the porch, quietly taking in the peaceful scene before her. Out in the yard, Hung crouched patiently, teaching Tony how to pull out weeds, his large hands gently guiding the small ones of his son. The boy laughed joyfully, his soft hair falling across his forehead, his bright eyes sparkling with delight as he looked at his father. That simple picture engraved itself into Hoài heart. For the first time after all the storms, she truly felt that happiness had arrived, happiness that was not noisy or showy, but born from genuine care, from small yet steady efforts of the man beside her. A tender smile spread across her lips, her eyes brimming with trust, as if whispering to herself, after everything, at last, she had found a real family. Happiness had barely settled when unexpected news arrived, like a cold wind slipping into the first days of spring. The department summoned Hung to take part in a major operation, complex, dangerous, and likely to last for months. It meant he would often be away from home, leaving behind the wife who had just endured so much loss, leaving behind the innocent child who still needed his protective embrace. The moment he received the assignment, Hung maintained a calm face. His steady, resonant voice carried across the meeting room, his eyes shining with determination. To his comrades, he appeared the same as ever, a steadfast police officer, ready to charge forward. Yet beneath that exterior, worry had already begun to stir, threading through his every thought. He knew all too well, this mission had no certain end date, and each day away from home meant another day his small family would have to face uncertainties on their own. When he returned from the meeting, Hung's steps were slower than usual. The familiar village path felt longer and heavier than ever. Tony's laughter rang out from the yard, mingling with the smell of cooking smoke from their small kitchen, and it struck him deep in the chest. That familiar image, his wife bent over preparing dinner, his child running carefree, had always been his anchor after long, grueling days of duty. But now, the thought of leaving it all behind made his heart tighten, as if he were abandoning an entire world. Night fell. A crescent moon hung in the sky, its soft light spilling into the yard, bathing the trees and roof tiles in pale silver. Hung sat silently on the porch, his broad back carrying the weight of unspoken thoughts. He watched as Hoài tended to Tony, each spoonful of rice patiently offered, each gentle word of comfort echoing in the quiet air. Her face, under the dim glow of the oil lamp, looked fragile yet resilient. Her kind smile warmed him, but also stirred a deep ache. He wondered, once he was gone, would she have the strength to bear it all, being both mother and father, the sole anchor for her young child? His worries swelled, like an undercurrent rising inside him. Duty to the nation was sacred, a command that could not be refused. Yet the love he bore for his family, for the wife to whom he had just pledged his vows, and for her son, whom he now regarded as his own flesh and blood, could not be set aside either. Hung felt his shoulders weighed down, as though he were carrying two opposing worlds, one of ideals and duty, and the other of the fragile home he had fought so hard to build. He remained silent for a long time, his eyes distant, lost in endless thought. The hum of crickets outside deepened the heaviness in the air. At that moment, Hoài looked at her husband, a strange premonition flickering in her heart. She didn't know exactly what haunted him, only sensed the unusual stillness in his demeanor. Quietly, she stepped closer, resting her soft hand on his shoulder, letting a trace of warmth flow into him. In her eyes shone trust, as if to say she was ready to walk beside him no matter what lay ahead. Hung looked back at her but spoke no words. He simply nodded, burying his worries deep inside. In that silence, love and responsibility twined tightly together, pressing down on his every breath. During the days when Hung was away on duty, Hoai's small home was never truly empty. Du, Hung's childhood friend and loyal companion, stopped by almost every day. In the early mornings, while Hoai was still sweeping the yard, his figure would appear at the gate, a small sack slung over his shoulder filled with all sorts of tools. Without waiting to be asked, he got straight to work, sometimes hammering loose boards back onto the door, sometimes carefully fixing the broken latch so that each night, Hoai could lock up without fear. At midday, if he found her busy cooking while little Tony clung to her, Du gladly carried the boy outside. He entertained him with stories of their childhood in the fields and taught him how to fold banana leaves into tiny grasshoppers. By afternoon, Du was shouldering buckets of water from the village well, his broad back glistening with strength, often prompting Hoai to murmur, "You should rest, I can do it." But Du only smiled gently, brushing it off, "It's fine, I'll be done in no time." On hot days, sweat streamed down his sun-browned face, his shirt soaked through, yet he remained patient, helping her pull weeds from the garden, propping tree trunks upright. Everything he did seemed natural, as though it was simply what a friend should do for the family of his closest brother. Yet behind all that earnest helpfulness, there was something not everyone overlooked. It was the way Du's eyes lingered on Hoai. In that gaze lay sympathy and compassion, but also something deeper, quieter. Each time she wiped the sweat from her brow or gently soothed Tony, his eyes followed her with a tenderness he never spoke aloud. He kept silent, but the sharp-eyed neighbors had already noticed. In a small village, nothing stays secret for long. People began to talk. Some praised him warmly. Du is a man of true loyalty, friends like him are rare. With Hung gone, he looks after Hoai and her child every single day. But there were also whispers laced with bitterness, a woman left at home, husband away, and another man visiting so often. How does that look? What will people think? When fragments of these rumors reached her ears, Hoai's heart stung. She knew well that Du meant no harm, it was all kindness, the care of a faithful friend. Yet gossip is not so easily ignored. Each word felt like a tiny needle, no sharp pain, but enough to sink in and weigh her down. Many nights, lying beside her child as the crickets sang outside, she found herself thinking of Du's gaze, and of the villagers' murmurs. She felt gratitude, guilt, and fear all at once, afraid that one day, when Hung returned, he would see everything in a different light. And so, even on calm afternoons, while she sat on the porch picking vegetables and children's laughter echoed through the yard, under her calm surface stirred hidden waves. They weren't only shame at idle gossip, but also an unshakable unease, a premonition that this fragile peace could not last forever. One late afternoon, as the last rays of sunlight spilled through the leaves in faint golden streaks, Hoai was still absorbed in her daily chores. In the courtyard, drops of water fell steadily from a basin of freshly washed clothes, darkening the red bricks beneath into damp patches. The faint scent of soap mingled with the warmth of the evening sun, creating a familiar, homely fragrance. She wrung out Tony's tiny shirts and socks, hanging them neatly on the bamboo pole that creaked gently in the wind. The repetition of the task, steady and simple, offered her a rare sense of peace in the long days without Hung. But just as she felt that fragile calm, her eyes froze. There, wedged in the crack of the bamboo gate, lay something unusual. A thin white envelope, its edges slightly curled, as though shoved in hastily by a hand that had just slipped away. It hadn't been there earlier, when she opened the gate to hang the laundry. A chill rippled through her chest. Her steps grew cautious as she walked closer, her heartbeat thudding like the urgent pounding of a drum. Her trembling hand reached out. The envelope's paper felt cold and foreign against her palms slick with sweat. Unease surged through her body, making her breath heavy. At that very moment, sunlight filtered through the thin sheet, faintly revealing blurred strokes inside. A sharp, foreboding instinct tightened her chest. Unable to resist, she tore it open and pulled out the paper within. Before her eyes was a single line of scrawled words, crooked, smeared, written in haste, yet tainted with a malice she could not name. This happiness will not last long. Hoài froze where she stood. Her ears rang, and the rustling of bamboo leaves around her seemed to vanish into a suffocating silence. The paper slipped from her limp fingers, fluttering in the air before landing on the damp bricks. It scraped across the ground with a faint, mocking sound, like the whisper of a curse. Panic-stricken, she bent to pick it up, but her hands were ice-cold, stiff as though drained of life. Her wide eyes darted across the empty lane. On either side, the tall bamboo groves swayed, their trunks clashing with hollow, unsettling knocks. The familiar lane now seemed longer, darker, stretched into an endless emptiness. No passing footsteps, no neighborly voices, not even the cluck of chickens at dusk, only the wind, the bamboo's eerie creaks, and the frantic pounding of her own heart. A prickling sensation crawled up her neck, as if unseen eyes were watching from somewhere within the shadows. Goosebumps rippled across her skin, her pulse erratic. She turned left, then right, desperately searching for any sign of who had left the envelope, but there was nothing. No figure, no sound. Only a vast, hollow silence pressing down on the house. Clutching the note tightly, she stared at the short, clumsy words that now burned into her mind. They were simple, almost careless, yet carried a dreadful weight, an ominous warning, an invisible sentence looming over the fragile happiness she had only just reclaimed. The unease spread through her body, making even her breath feel heavy and strained. She stood frozen in the courtyard, consumed by fear. She did not know what awaited her, only that in that moment, a vague shadow had begun to creep into her small, hard-won haven of peace. That night, the village sky lay cloaked in stillness. Pale moonlight filtered through the window frame, scattering broken beams across the small room. From outside came the sound of crickets, the whisper of wind threading through the bamboo grove like murmured secrets. Inside, Hoài lay on her side on the old bamboo bed, her eyes wide open, sleep impossible. Beside her, Tony slept soundly, his breathing steady, his innocent chest rising and falling with each breath. The boy stirred slightly, his small arms wrapping around his mother, instinctively nestling closer as if seeking her familiar protection. Hoài held him tighter, feeling the rhythm of his breath and heartbeat against her chest. This should have been a moment of peace, the sweetest time, when a child rests safely in his mother's arms, when a woman can savor the simple, sacred happiness of motherhood. Yet inside her, a storm raged. Each word from the letter she had found earlier carved into her mind like a blade. This happiness will not last long. The crude, jagged handwriting hovered like a ghostly shadow, reappearing whenever she closed her eyes, oppressive and threatening. Several times her hand reached toward the small wooden table by the bed, where her old phone rested. She longed to call Hung, to hear his deep, steady voice, to confess everything and ease the fear weighing on her chest. But then his image surfaced in her mind, Hung in his police uniform, eyes resolute, surrounded by files and duties. He was carrying the heavy burden of responsibility, standing on the front line against danger. If she spoke now, would he still be able to give his work his full focus? Or would she only burden him with more worries? At that thought, Hoài tightened her embrace around Tony, biting her lip until it bled to keep her fears locked within. The night dragged on endlessly. Each passing hour felt doubled, heavy and exhausting. The chirping of insects only deepened the loneliness of the house. Moonlight streamed through the window slats, casting Hoai's thin shadow across the brick floor, eyes sunken, lined with sleepless fear. Terror and love intertwined, making her tremble yet silently fueling her resolve to stay strong in her husband's stead. At that same hour, far away beneath the glow of fluorescent lights, Hung sat rigid at a desk piled high with papers. Before him lay a thick confidential dossier just handed down by his superiors. His calloused fingers flipped through the pages, his eyes darkening with each photograph, each report. The file detailed the suspicious presence of strangers loitering around his home village for days on end. Blurred figures in hastily taken photos, shadowy silhouettes moving near the small lanes, testimonies from locals of unknown men lurking, all laid bare in black and white. Hung's heartbeat pounded in his chest. He reread the lines over and over, searching desperately for the possibility that it was coincidence, that these were harmless drifters. But the more he read, the clearer it became, this was no coincidence. A hidden scheme was unfolding, and its target might well be the place he loved most. His fingers tapped against the edge of the file, each knock as heavy as a hammer blow. For a fleeting moment, worry shadowed his otherwise stern features. In his mind appeared Hoaica, her weary yet steadfast eyes, her hair tied loosely at her back, her small figure standing at the porch waiting for him to return. Then Tony, innocent, smiling, his little feet pattering across the courtyard. Those images pierced Hung's thoughts, making it impossible to sit still. He shot to his feet, the wooden chair crashing back against the wall with a sharp crack. His footsteps struck hard against the floor as he paced the small office, every stride a tangle of pain and conflict. Duty to his country, loyalty to his comrades, that was the ideal he had vowed to live by. Yet family, his wife and child, was the only place his heart could find peace. Now the two paths clashed, colliding, suffocating him with their weight. As the hours ticked by, tension rose. The file lay open on the desk, its words leaping off the page like stark warnings. Beyond the window, the city night pressed thick and black, the dim glow of streetlights fading into obscurity. In the room remained only Hung's ragged breathing and an unshakable dread. A storm was coming, and time was slipping away. In the small village house, Hoaica lay restless, holding Tony tightly in her arms, her anxious eyes refusing to close. Outside, the darkness and the wind hissing through the bamboo seemed to foretell an ill omen drawing near. Far away, Hung paced heavily in his office, his hand gripping the confidential dossier, his heart pounding as if it might break free from his chest. On one side was duty, on the other was family, both pulling at him at once, weighing down his shoulders. Across that distance, they shared the same unease, yet neither had the chance to speak it aloud. And as the night lingered, fragments of fate began to close in, promising a great storm on the horizon. Will Hung make it home before danger reaches their fragile little family? Will Hoaica find the strength to stand firm against the unseen threats? Stay tuned for the next episode to find out.
Xin chào tất cả mọi người đã quay trở lại với kênh của mình. Hôm nay thì mình tiếp tục đưa đến với mọi người video về câu chuyện của Lý Tử Diệp và CEO James. Mọi người thân mến, thì ở tập trước mọi người cũng đã biết thì bố James là ông Hoàn là một người vô cùng phản đối. Trước kia là phản đối tình yêu của James và Diệp, và sau này thì đã phản đối việc và James và Diệp nhận nuôi bé Nhi. Và ông là một người có tính chiếm hữu rất là cao, nên khi con trai không nghe lời, tức là James không nghe lời, thì ông rất bực tức và ông ép rằng cả hai phải nghe lời và không cho cả hai nhận nuôi bé Nhi nữa. Vậy thì mọi chuyện tiếp theo sẽ diễn ra như thế nào? Liệu James có thể đủ sức để bảo vệ được gia đình nhỏ của mình hay không? Và cả cái việc mà đang có người đến nhận là người thân của Nhi thì liệu có phải là sự thật hay không? Hay chỉ là một một cái kế hoạch của ông Hoàn, bố của Jem, thì mọi người hãy cùng đón xem ở tập sau để biết thêm chi tiết nhé mọi người.